Welcome to Behind the Story, where we discover the story behind your favourite stories. My name is Lisa Renee from the Collab Press, and I'm a contemporary rom-com author.
And I'm Naomi Craig. I write biblical fiction and I facilitate biblical fiction aficionados. We've got a great pre-recorded interview with a longtime friend, returning guest, Liz Tolsma. But before we play that, how are you? What's going on in your life, Lisa?
I've had a bit of a break down in Australia, we have big, long school holidays, vacation. So haven't done much for December, January, just plugging away with the normal stuff that I have to do. So learning Facebook ads, doing a course in January, and this February, I've been working with Tabitha Bolden, my co-author for Taryn Daniels. We have a pen name together. We're working on the book 3 in the Nantucket romantic comedy series. So that's been a lot of fun. We're doing that now, and yeah, she's just great to work with, and it's actually can be quite easy because sometimes we share a chapter, so it's one scene for me, one scene for her. So it's really, like 1,200 some days. So it's so easy. And that's like nothing to Tabitha. She's probably writing like 5,000 words on something else before she gets to my approach.
She's like, this is just the warm up, and then I'm getting into the real writing.
She leaves us to the end of the night. But she's just amazing. She still comes up with great words and everything. So yeah, she's busy doing all sorts of things, getting herself into this and that, and lots of series. I'm not so much. I'm just focusing on Taryn Daniels, and then I'll be working on, I sort of do the marketing, the covers and the advertising sort of side of it. So I'll be doing that, and then yeah, that's what this month is about. So what about you, Naomi? What are you doing?
I've started on the sequel to And Their Numbers Grew. We've got a title, And They Were Persuaded. Donna's already working on her clever magic with covers, and it's looking fabulous. And over on Biblical Fiction Aficionados, we're actually doing a Reader's Choice Award for 2023. So I'm kind of, if you're watching this, the voting is still going on. It's going to be the first part of March. It'll be done. So be sure to hop on over there. If you read any biblical fiction in 2023, make sure you get over there and vote for your favorite. So lots of good stuff happening. And I'm kind of shaking up how I write. I've had a real rough time getting into the groove. So I just gave myself, you're always supposed to show, don't tell. So I just gave myself permission just to tell the story and then get through the chapter, and then I go back through and I polish and I edit and I do a little bit more research at that point. So it's a new format for me. So so far it's working pretty good, and it's helping me to get into back into the groove. It's been a long time since I wrote, so
yeah, it can be daunting when you have a big break, and yeah, just getting into it. And sometimes that's right. That's just the best method, is just to
get the words out.
Yeah, and just know that's just a rough draft, and then you'll go back in, you add detail, and you'll put lighting and sound and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I do that. I'll just add description or add more, senses.
What is the culture of the Salamis on Cyprus? What's happening? What's happening outside of I don't need to do that now because I'm sure I will get distracted on the internet, Make yourself a note, come back to it. So
yeah. And it's very hard to do that, switch off the editing brain and, want to have it all nice and perfect as you go along.
Yeah.
But that's one method. Yeah. Working faster and getting the words quicker is just writing it out and really crappy first draft, and know that you're going to come back and do layers, add layers. But yeah, I've done both ways. Sometimes it sort of feels like, you could work on one chapter and then you go back on that chapter and you edit it and you make it all nice. And, it might take 4 hours or so.
Yeah.
Longer, but then it's done and then you go on. So it can work. Authors do it different ways, but if you want to smash out 6,000 words in a day or something like that, sometimes.
Oh, that sounds nice. Do you do that? Is that a normal?
Well, I have occasionally if I want to, if I'm going away on a little writer's retreat for myself.
Oh yeah.
I will do that kind of stuff, but a lot of it's speech to text and things like that. But then the same thing, you got to go back to the editing and clean it all up, and it's all so rough, and especially speech to text. So I don't know, it's just all the ways sort of work get the results in the end. So
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be one set thing. It's like, for this one, this is working for me, but next time or in previous ones, I've done different approaches. So, but I'm hoping to get collaborate with Dana McNeely, who I run Biblical Fiction Aficionados with, good friend we've had on here. I'm hoping to to do more of a critique with her. And so I've committed to doing like a chapter a week. So I am trying to get into that to honor that commitment and before I start actually working with her. So, and also, it's just, you got to keep moving forward. I mean, I only am writing half of the book, but still for my brain, I don't, Donna is much faster of a writer. And she's my Tabitha right now. So I don't even know if she started yet because she's got other brilliant things going. But once she does, she will be done within like 2 weeks, I think. So
yeah. But that's good that they have other things to do, so they're not like twiddling their thumbs waiting for us.
Where's your paper?
Yeah, well, I have to schedule Tabitha in. She's got so much things on, and if I don't schedule her to come work with me, she'll like find something else to take on. So I
I'm
know
sure.
I gotta book her in and like.
Wait, hold on, my turn. Yeah,
I want to give her a break, but I know there's no break with her. Like, if I don't
there's
schedule
no
her,
break.
she'll take
There's no
something else
break.
on.
Yeah, with so Donna started out the first novella of And Their Numbers Grew, and it was brilliant, and it just drew you in. And so now I'm like, what I am writing is not worth reading. Like,
It will be. It will be. The end
there's
result.
no pressure here at all. But
Are you doing the same format for novellas, like
yes,
25,000? Yeah.
yeah,
And you're the first one this time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll be interesting and
Yeah.
pull you
And you're going
in.
to do a Kickstarter for this one as well.
I think so. I think so. We did not raise all of the funds to cover production costs, but it certainly was a really nice chunk of it. So
Yeah. Help.
just starting much earlier, like getting the finished thing. This is also why I have to keep working towards that deadline in my brain, because I want to get started to the editor earlier, because we did run into a lot of time delays. Not our fault, not our editors, just outside stuff. So I wanted to get that one a little bit more polished this time around too. That's the story of this is my year, is making sure I'm polished. So
Right. Sounds good.
and then I got my rights back for my Christmas novella, The Weary World Rejoices. So I'm going to be fitting that in sometime. I don't know when's a good time to release a Christmas thing. Maybe October or something.
October.
October.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it should already be edited and just need to be formatted and get a cover. So hopefully that won't overload me when, because this one And They Were Persuaded will come out in November. So I don't want to be strapped again and make
Right.
myself crazy. But
Yeah. Well, it might be good actually, because you could have the link to your next one, to your 2 books, those books in the back of your Christmas novella. If you launch that October. And then
that's a good idea. Look at you, you're so clever.
Oh dear. Okay, so you want to bring on our guest today?
Our guest today is Liz Tolsma. Liz hosts the Christian Historical Fiction podcast. If it's happening in the world of Christian historical fiction, Liz is talking about it. She's also a good friend to our show. So Liz, thank you so much for coming back to Behind the Story.
Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy getting to come here and chat with you. It's always so much fun.
So for those who aren't familiar with you, tell us about yourself and what you write.
I'm Liz Tolsma, and I am on around book 30. I lost count somewhere along the way, which is a really good problem to have. I never thought I would lose count, but I did. And I mostly write World War II fiction. That's really where my passion lies. But I've also written romantic suspense and some straight historical romance. And I even have an Amish romance. So a little bit of everything. But I live in Wisconsin. We have a son who just got married. So I have a brand new daughter-in-law, which is a lot of fun. They live in California, which is sad for us that they're so far away. And then our oldest daughter just moved to Washington, D.C. So I have one on each coast,
Oh, wow.
which that's awful to try to split my time between that. And then we have a daughter with special needs who lives at home with us. And I like to do the regular author things like read and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
reading and good coffee, and you'll find Liz.
exactly. That pretty much defines a writer, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. Or maybe tea. I guess we won't discriminate, but
No.
oh, good. Well, your newest book, What I Promise You, is book 2 in Echoes to the Past series and covers World War II, Southern France, and a 2022 missionary nurse. So, what's the story behind What I Promise You?
So I was putting together this series called Echoes of Past, and they are all split time and all have to do with genealogy or DNA, things like that. That's so hot right now with Ancestry and 23andMe and all that. And so I kind of combined that with World War II. So each of the books has a World War II timeline and a contemporary timeline. And I was just searching for some really interesting stories, something different about World War II that not many Americans know about. And I came across an article about a woman who opened a maternity home in Southwest France during the Spanish Revolution in the late 1930s. So she was aiding pregnant women who were fleeing Spain over the Pyrenees Mountains and into France. And then when France was invaded by Germany during World War II, she sort of switched and started aiding Jewish women, pregnant Jewish women, deliver their babies and tried to get them across the Pyrenees Mountains into the safety of Spain. I was just fascinated by that and the work that she did. And so the story just kind of built from there. I took the real place and the real woman and fictionalized it and turned it into What I Promise You.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So, your main characters are Noemi and Caitlin, and I know you did this intentionally because to honor me, but thank you.
Right.
How are Noemi and Caitlin similar across the years?
Yeah, so that's one thing about writing a split time book is that the stories really kind of are different, but they need to parallel each other. And so what Naomi and Caitlin have in common is that they have both suffered great loss and great tragedy in their lives in different ways, but they experience the same kind of emotions that way. And they both suffer from survivor's guilt. Why, God, did you take this person and leave me here? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And so they both go on this journey to, first of all, try to assuage their guilt and find their purpose. And then ultimately finding that God forgives everything and that He has a purpose and a reason for each of them and for each of us as well. So that's how they parallel each other.
Love that. That's beautiful. Kelly B on Goodreads says it's bad enough with all the horrors that men, women, and children had to suffer while being tortured in those camps. But can you imagine being pregnant at the same time? No energy, craving, sickness, trying to eat enough good food to keep your baby alive. Those are hard enough for mothers in the modern age, let alone in a concentration camp where they're trying to kill you. Did you in your research, did you find that they were that pregnant ladies in concentration camps was a major deal, or how did you, was that like, is that, I mean, I think like you said, that's not a problem that people really think about with World War II, but you found a lot of that in your research.
Right. So the camp that plays a part in the story, Camp WWII in France, was a real transit camp. So it wasn't a concentration camp. It wasn't an extermination camp. Conditions were horrific there. There was lack of sanitation. There was lack of food. There was the weather to deal with. You would think southern France is beautiful and warm along the Mediterranean Sea, and it can be, but yourself is on a plain between the sea and the mountains. And when I visited there, the wind was just howling, absolutely howling. And it was October and it was lovely everywhere else, but really cold there. So conditions were awful. And yes, there were pregnant women who came through there. The real maternity home delivered somewhere between 500 and 600 babies between the late 1930s and mid 1940s. So it served a lot of women. There were a lot of women who were pregnant there. And the woman who ran the maternity home worked in tandem with another woman who actually was based in the transit camp, Camp WWII, and they worked together to try to get these pregnant women out and to save them and to save their babies. So their work was so crucial and vital and so important. And I didn't really think much about women who would have been pregnant when taken to these camps. I think if they went to like Auschwitz while they were visibly pregnant, then of course they would immediately be sent to the gas chambers. But since this wasn't an extermination camp, that didn't happen for them. And so, like you said, they had to find ways not only for themselves to survive, but for their babies to survive. And with the help of these two women, they managed to save somewhere between 500 and 600 babies.
What? Wow, that's amazing. So, but the series Echoes of the Past is considered time slip. And in this case, it's actually 3 eras that we cover. So is there a challenge to write in the different time zones, not time zones, time eras, and mesh them together? What sort of challenges did you come across with that?
That really is a challenge. I've enjoyed learning how to write the split time fiction, and I challenged myself a lot because the first chapter just sort of came to me one day. It was, as an author, every now and again, you'll just get a chapter that just flows perfectly and you change very little of it in the editing process. It just comes out perfect. It happens rarely, but it does happen. And that was the first chapter with this book. And it came to me in first person. I did not know who was talking in that timeline. I kept writing that and didn't know who it was for quite a while.
Wow.
So, and then when I write the time slip, I write them differently. Sometimes I will write it the exact way you see in the book. That's the case with the first book in this series. But for this one, it just begged me to write the historical straight through.
Wow.
And then write the contemporary straight through. So then the challenge was to sew those together in a way that made sense so that they flowed and so that everything came together at the very end. And so I was up at our cabin trying to finish this book, and I had color-coded sticky notes for each timeline, and I wrote a summary of each chapter on that, and I had them spread all over the floor in here. I'm actually here now finishing my next book. I'm doing the same thing, but my floor was covered with these colored sticky notes, and it was kind of great to not have to worry about the dog walking through them or anything. And I was just able to move them around and say, okay, so this would work here, and then this has to come, and okay, she can't know that yet here, so then that chapter is going to have to be over here. And so that's kind of how I sewed all together. It was crazy. It was fun, but I haven't heard any complaints that it doesn't work or doesn't flow. So it all came together in the end. But I really made it hard for myself, not only adding a third timeline, but writing it the way that I did was difficult.
So now you know, if you're watching, writing is really like a jigsaw puzzle. If you if you are writing, you have a good chance that you're like trying to paste together the best storyline. Now you know what goes through an author's head. Here, long. Oh goodness. So if you are watching, we'd love to have your comment to enter into a chance to win what I promise you. Comment below. Let us know a time slip or a dual time that you've read and loved. Comment below. Let us know that. We'd love to see some other great jigsaw puzzles. So one thing that always fascinates me, Liz, is that you're able to research on location. Were you able to do that with this book?
I have been fascinated with France and everything French since I took French in high school. I have always wanted to go there. So when I had the opportunity to travel there to research this book, I jumped on it. I didn't go to Paris or any of the big cities or anything like that. My friend came with me. We actually flew into Barcelona because it's the nearest big city to where the story was set. And the contemporary storyline is set somewhat in Barcelona as well. And then we took the train over to France and we stayed in two different little towns there. And it was wonderful. It was an absolutely fantastic trip. I came back loving France even more than I did before I went, loving the French people. I had studied the culture quite a bit, and so knew what to expect. My French is terrible. And in places like Paris, you'll find plenty of French people who speak English, but in this tucked away little far southwest corner of France, most of the people don't speak English. Very little English was spoken there. So that was quite a challenge, but it was fun. We were exploring the town one day and came across a grocer who was selling fruit and vegetables, and we went into his little shop and he and I had a conversation about mushrooms. So I managed to, and we were both laughing. I don't know whether he was laughing at what I was saying or how I was saying it, but it was just a lot of fun and a great challenge. And we had some amazing food, as you can imagine, and just a fabulous time. And honestly, to visit a transit camp like Camp de Rivesaltes was sobering. And that was very difficult. That was a long and difficult day for me to see the place where all this horrific stuff happened. And then we were also able to see the real maternity home, which actually, if you look on the cover of What I Promise You, the picture here of the maternity home is the actual maternity home that I visited in. And I really wanted this on the cover, and they said they couldn't get it. They were having copyright difficulties getting a picture of that. And I said, well, I took one while I was there. I took several. I just have my little iPhone, and I'm not a great photographer, but I'll send you what I have. And if you can make it work, make it work. So that is the picture that I took when I was in France visiting this maternity home.
Wow.
And it made the cover. Those are cool. Really
the
cool.
Clouds were the
But
clouds and that gray stormy sky yours too?
No, they
No.
weren't. We had lovely weather while we were there. So they kind of added that, I think,
Of
to
course.
give it the moody feeling,
Yeah.
or two.
It needs to be a dark story instead of a happy story. Yeah. Perfect.
Right.
I love that. So what struggles did you have apart from meshing the timelines together as you're writing this story?
Well, yeah, meshing the story together was probably one of the hardest parts of it, as well as I always try to stay as historically accurate as I possibly can. And so sometimes that gets to be a challenge. And walking that very fine line when you're writing World War II, the things that the people suffered at the transit camp and even in the maternity home were horrible. It was just, I can't begin to express unless you've been there and seen it for yourself, how horrible it really was, and imagine being there and being pregnant. And so to walk that fine line, to try to convey that to the readers so that you get a sense of being there, get a sense of what the people were suffering without making it too dark. You know, I don't want this to be a grim story with no hope or light in it whatsoever. So even though they put that dark sky in the background, there is light in there. There's always hope that gets infused in there, but it can be very difficult to walk that line between the darkness and the despair that was in the camp and even in the maternity home with the hope and light that Christ offers us. So that was a big challenge in this book.
So what if there was one thing that you could like magically impart to your readers, what would you have them come away with after reading What I Promise You?
I guess I would say that what I really hope they come away with from the book is just knowing that there is peace and forgiveness and hope in Christ. And even when your life takes a completely different path from what you think it should be, from what you had always planned from the time you were a small child, both Naomi and Caitlin sort of had their lives all planned out. And then things happened and things changed for them. And they had to learn to rely and trust on God, and that his plan for them was best, even in the difficult circumstances, trusting God and knowing that his plan for them was best. And so that's what I hope the readers come away with, that, you know, so often we have these plans for our lives and we think this is how my life is going to go and this is how it's going to be, and you have it all laid out, you know, when you're in your late teens or early 20s and the world is in front of you and you think this is what my life is going to look like. I can guarantee you it won't look like that. It will be somehow different. And yet God can take anything, any situation, anything that happens and make something beautiful out of it. So that's sort of the message of the book, What I Promise You.
Love it. Love it. Now it's a super serious question that we really need to know. Is cereal soup? Do you consider cereal soup?
No, I do not consider cereal soup. I was always taught when I was a child, you know, my parents taught us very proper etiquette. And you eat your cereal and you do not drink milk. You do not pick your bowl up and drink milk. My husband would disagree with me strongly, and he always encouraged our children to do as he did and pick the cereal bowl up and drink the milk at the bottom. And of course, I sat there in horror. But for me, no, cereal is not milk. It's not soup.
Well, so what about cold soups? Are those soups then, or no?
I don't like cold soups either. I like
Yeah.
hot food.
I was gonna say, I think what you're saying, it sounds like you're in a no cold soup either.
No. What do you consider cereal soup?
You know, until I read that question, I mean, you've got your floaties, you've got your liquid, you've got a spoon. So I guess by like sheer basics, it is the same thing, but that's I haven't wrapped my brain around that one yet. So so what's coming up next? You said you've got it all spread out in front of you. What are you working on for us next?
The next book I have coming out is called What I Left for You, and it's book 3 in the Echoes of the Past series. I was a little easier on myself this time, and I only have 2 timelines. But it is set in southern Poland during the Second World War. And again, I take a little known part of the war, and it's about the Lemko people. They are an ethnic minority that used to live in southern Poland, northern Slovakia, and western Ukraine. And I discovered that I am of Lemko descent. So even though my great-grandmother was born in Poland, I'm not Polish. I don't have any Polish blood in me. I'm Lemko. And what the Germans and then the Soviets and Poles did to the Lemkos during and after the war was absolutely horrible, but it's something that I think almost nobody knows about. And so I'm very excited to share the story of what happened to my people during the war. And yeah, and it's going to be dual timeline. So then in the contemporary timeline, it's a young woman who needs a break from her job as a social worker and starts digging into her family history and starts uncovering all these secrets that have been long buried. So,
Excellent. Well, where can readers find you online? Where's the best way to find out more information about that one as it comes out?
sure. So the best way to find me is on my website, which is liztolsma.com. So very simple. And you will find everything there. You'll find all the information about all my books over there. You will find sign up for my newsletter, my very non-spammy newsletter. I promise I don't send 5 of them in a day like Bath and Body Works does. And we just have, I tell a little bit about what's going on in my life, what's coming up next from me. There's always a recipe in there. My readers just really enjoy the recipes. They always tell me how much they love them. And there's always a book giveaway in there. So you can sign up. That's a great way to connect with me. And you can find all my social media links there as well. And then you did mention it. So I guess I can put a shameless plug for my podcast,
Super.
Historical Fiction Talk, and all the information for that is also on liztolsma.com.
And that's a new book author coming out every week, right? For your
Yes, every week I interview a new Christian historical fiction author, or a different one every week. So yes, lots of fun over there.
Very good. Well, remember to connect with Liz. We will have her website in the comments below. Be sure to comment, tell us some other time slip or dual times that you've read to be entered into a copy of What I Promise You. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Behind the Story. Until next time, let us run with endurance this race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. See you next time.